Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're looking at something most of us hope we never have to deal with, but absolutely all of us need to understand: the anatomy of a water disaster. We so often think of a burst pipe or flooded basement as just a massive cleanup job, like grab a bunch of mops, maybe a few shop fans, and you're good to go, right? Well, actually, scratch that. The reality? It is a sudden, high-stakes structural emergency where the very physics of your home is under attack. We're going to look closely at the science of water damage and exactly how professionals rip victory right from the jaws of a flooding defeat. Okay, let's dive into this, because the number 60 is the absolute most important takeaway of the day. When water breaches your home, you have exactly 60 minutes to get a mitigation crew on site before the severity of the damage begins to literally double. Every single hour you wait, that water is wicking further up your drywall. It's sinking deeper and deeper into your subfloors, and it's aggressively compromising the structural integrity of your house. It is quite literally a ticking clock. Section 1, the local threat landscape, and why Belmont is a perfect storm. We're going to see how New England's geography and climate cycles don't just cause water damage, they act as a massive multiplier for it. So, different eras of construction actually face entirely different battlefronts here. In historic Belmont neighborhoods, like Waverly Square or Belmont Hill, which were mostly built between the 1920s and 50s, the vulnerabilities are baked right into the foundation, literally. You've got these beautiful old fieldstone foundations, but they naturally allow groundwater seepage during heavy rains. Plus, older homes often have galvanized pipes that are reaching the end of their lifespan, just waiting to corrode and burst. But don't let modern construction give you a false sense of security. Newer builds aren't immune, they just have different weaknesses. Modern homes frequently suffer from flashing failures around windows and deck attachments, or improper vapor barriers that actually trap moisture inside the building envelope. And the environment outside is actively working against both of those types of homes. There are 4 main environmental triggers in this specific region. First, you've got winter temperatures plunging below 20 degrees, which is prime time for bursting pipes in unheated additions. Then you have the ground itself. It's clay-heavy soil. Clay doesn't drain well at all, so it holds the water and creates immense hydrostatic pressure against foundation walls right after a storm. Add in the spring thaw and seasonal flooding from the nearby Alloway Brook, and top the whole shebang off with intensely humid New England summers that create these perfect condensation traps in your basements and crawl spaces. The environment is just constantly, relentlessly testing your home's defenses. Section 2, the physics of the flood and why not all water is equal. Because once that 60-minute clock starts, the exact chemical and biological makeup of the water entirely dictates how professionals have to respond to the emergency. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the restoration industry officially categorizes a flood. It's not just by the volume of water, but by the contamination level. Category 1 is your clean water, so think a broken supply line or rainwater. It's bad, sure, but it's sanitary. Category 2 is gray water, like a washing machine overflow. It carries some contamination. But Category 3, that is grossly contaminated black water. We're talking sewage backups or outside floodwaters that have picked up ground pathogens and tree root infiltration. If a Category 3 flood hits, standard drying goes completely out the window. It instantly requires intense biohazard protocols, serious protective equipment, and specialized disposal methods that are strictly regulated by the state. Section 3, the critical window, or the race against time. Understanding the type of water is absolutely crucial, but it all comes back to that ticking clock we started with. Let's look at what physically, chemically, and biologically happens to a house as the hours tick by. The life cycle of a water disaster follows a highly predictable, strict timeline. In hour 1, the emergency mitigation and water extraction absolutely must begin. Why? Because by hour 48, you hit a terrifying milestone. The risk of mold colonization peaks in porous materials, stuff like drywall and insulation. If water sits for 2 days, microscopic mold spores will take over. If you manage to beat that clock, days 3 to 7 are spent in a highly strategic structural drying phase. And finally, weeks 2 to 3 are dedicated to full reconstruction and getting everything back to code compliance. But that 48-hour mark? That is the absolute point of no return for saving a lot of your home's original materials. So to put that into perspective, water damage doubles in severity every single hour you wait. This is exactly why rapid dispatch is completely non-negotiable. You can't just mop this up yourself. Professional crews arrive with thermal imaging cameras to see the moisture hiding invisibly inside your walls, and they use truck-mounted extractors to forcefully pull water out of carpets and subfloors long before wicking destroys the drywall. Speed in those first 24 hours literally dictates whether your beautiful hardwood floors survive or if they end up in a dumpster because of cupping and buckling. Section 4, the science of restoration, reversing the damage. So, once the immediate threat is contained, how do the professionals actually fix it? Well, this isn't a guessing game. It is a highly calculated, physics-based approach to saving a structure. And this brilliantly illustrates the concept of psychrometrics. It's the science of measuring temperature, humidity, and moisture content in air and materials. Restoration technicians use psychrometrics to calculate something called grain depression. They aren't just randomly throwing a few fans in a room and crossing their fingers. They are measuring the exact moisture in the air to perfectly size commercial dehumidifiers, creating specific airflow patterns that forcefully pull moisture out of the wood framing and right into the air where the dehumidifier can capture it. This highly scientific approach follows strict, step-by-step industry protocols, specifically the IICRC-certified standards. First, there's emergency extraction to stop that wicking effect. Second, they use thermal imaging and penetrating meters for hidden moisture detection. Third is setting up negative air pressure and dehumidification so the moisture doesn't migrate to unaffected rooms. And fourth, daily monitoring and logging. Equipment placement is based entirely on airflow principles, not guesswork. This rigorous standardized process is exactly what allows a soaked structural frame to dry in a matter of days, rather than just rotting over a period of weeks. Once everything is verifiably dry, the reconstruction phase begins. But here's the real silver lining for you: upgrading the envelope. You see, reconstruction isn't just about making the room look pretty again. It's a critical opportunity to upgrade older homes to current Massachusetts building codes. If you have to tear out a flooded basement in an old historic home anyway, the restoration process allows you to install proper vapor barriers, improved drainage planes behind the siding, and much better insulation. You are essentially armor plating the home against the next disaster. Which leaves us with a final, crucial question to consider today. Is your home's hidden envelope truly protected against the next freeze, thaw, or flood? Whether you're living in a 100-year-old historic gem or a brand new modern build, water will always find the weakest link. But by understanding the physics of water damage and the science of rapid restoration, you're no longer just a victim to the elements. You're prepared. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, check those foundations, and I'll see you next time.